send those out as a committee draft for member body comment and for the different technical advisory groups within the countries to be able to comment on, and then gradually, as we get more and more consensus, we finally publish the international standard. I think I'm not going to go into the details of all of these, but these are some of the challenges that we face. I think that was probably where I was talking to myself for a few minutes on that particular slide. So what are the key objectives? We want a stable core set of requirements for the next 10 years or so. One thing that's very, very important to us is we want to keep that current focus on the effective process management to produce the desired outcomes. In other words, use the process approach that we have developed and has been so effective over the last 12 years or so, and make sure that by managing the process as an organisation really can achieve the desired outcome, which in the case of 9001 is consistent conforming products that are delivered to their customers. Take into account the changes in practices and technology since the last major revision. Apply Annex SL of the ISO directives to enhance compatibility and alignment with other ISO management system standards. In principle, this is a mandate that comes from ISO that we have to follow, but there are the possibilities to apply for, let's say, waivers where it's felt that it cannot be followed in its entirety. But the design specification for 2015 version, the ISO TC176 SC2 members decided and voted actually unanimously for this as part of the design specification. So we will be following the compatible structure that 14,001 members will be following. We want to make sure we have effective implementation and conformity assessment by first, second and third parties, and wherever possible keep the language as simple as we can to aid understanding and to allow for consistent interpretations. So this is where we are now. We are currently still in October. The timeline is we had the committee draft out for comment and ballot in June. The balloting closed in September. We now have a period where we will be working on the comments, looking at the comments, developing the draft international standard, publishing the draft international standard for balloting comments sometime around April next year, and gradually moving towards the consensus with the target publication date of September 2015. So where we are now, we did a lot of work preparing the groundwork in the 2010 to 2012 time frame. The working group responsible for the revision started with a preliminary meeting that should be June 2012. In October 2012, we had the new work item proposal and design specification. That was approved unanimously by the ISO SC2 and TC176 SC2 membership. In the November to April timeframe, our working group 24, those nominated experts from the different member bodies, have been developing and agreeing on the working drafts. June 2013, we published the committee draft, and September, the committee draft was quite significantly well approved. We had just under 80% approval from the member bodies. Specifically, if anybody wants to get their calculators out, we had 51 positive votes, some of them with comments, 11 negative votes, all of them with comments, and 3 abstentions. To give you an idea, we received a total of about 2,800 comments. Seems a lot, but at the equivalent stage for the year 2000 revision, we received about 6,000 comments. So all of those individual comments will be looked at, they'll be addressed, and they will be dispositioned. Some of them will be accepted, some of them will be accepted with modifications, and some of them may be considered to be not appropriate or not possible or outside the scope or whatever. So some of the key changes. Obviously, I've already mentioned, irrespective of any new requirements or any changed requirements, the standard is being completely reformatted to align with that Annex SL structure. We're talking about goods and services instead of products. That may change, but at the committee draft stage, the working group had felt that goods and services gave more emphasis to the fact that we're not just talking about tangible products. Product obviously technically addresses services as well. Service is one particular component of the product, but that's not always being well understood by some of the less mature elements within the service sector. So that's the proposal at the moment. As I said, it may change depending on the comments we've received on the committee draft. We've put a lot more emphasis on risk, on addressing risks and opportunities. We've actually done away, and I'll mention it a little bit later on, we've actually done away with the preventive action clause, which was, in my view, should be the most important clause in the standard. It was actually tucked away right at the end of the 9001, 2000, 2008 version, not really doing very much good or very much benefit. We've now brought that and put that throughout the standard in the form of risk assessment, risk management, a risk-based thinking to enable an organisation to identify risks, mitigate risks, and by doing that, infuse the whole concept of preventive action throughout the system. As I'll mention later, we've actually avoided using that phrase preventive action because there is a lot of confusion traditionally among the non-quality professionals, and indeed I would say among some who are quality professionals, about the difference between corrective and preventive action. So we wanted to get away from that discussion. I mentioned we've eliminated the term preventive action. The concept still remains, and it's actually reinforced throughout the standard by addressing that question of risk. We talk about external provision of goods and services instead of purchasing. We recognise that in some cases organisations may not purchase in the traditional sense. They may be receiving goods and services from other parts of the same parent corporation. They may be using customer-provided goods and services. They may be borrowing pieces or borrowing equipment to carry out their activities, sometimes from competitors. In the case of hospitals, it's quite common to have a common pool of like snake venom antidotes and things like that. So we've tried to make that a little bit more all-embracing. And we'll see what the comments come back. We've eliminated the specific prescriptive requirements for this thing called a quality manual and for this person called a management representative. That doesn't mean that the system doesn't have to be documented. Doesn't mean that there doesn't have to be somebody who is going to be responsible for bringing all the quality management system together. But the prescriptive nature of those two requirements we've taken away. Again, let's see what the comments bring back and see to what extent we will be possibly reintroducing those. I really don't know. I'll probably have a much better idea by the end of next week, which is our next meeting. So, some examples of what you can expect. This is based on Annex SL, and it's based on what is currently in the committee draft. I've tried to avoid sort of giving too much detail. Several reasons for that. Obviously, there is the copyright issue of the standard, but equally, I don't want to give the impression that everything is all done and dusted and that none of this is going to change. What I want to do is to give you a flavour for the way the standard is going to look.